chapter 27. We are done with this 4-chapter unit here. This is, again, this whole section has been very fun to me. It's not really a change in 28, but I think it starts a new set of chapters, 28 through 33. And they're also pretty easy as well. We don't have anything difficult the rest of the time. 27, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get through the Isaiah stuff, and if we have time, I'm going to see where we are time-wise. I will come back and cover Revelation 12. I will do all of Revelation 12 if we have time. And I think y'all will like that. I think you'll be able to pick up the symbolism because we've pretty much covered almost all of it by now through the book of Isaiah, using Isaiah's definitions of everything. But we start off with, and remember this section, just to keep the context, we've been talking about the destruction of the defense city of the ones that break the everlasting covenant. And how the thing that replaces that, the antitype kingdom, the New Testament church, would have its doors open, not doors, its gates open, so that the Gentiles could come in, so that all peoples and all nations could come in. That lets you know the when, all right? So here we have just another in that day. The Lord with his sword, great and strong sword, shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent. He shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. And we've already gone over this several times, but just to recap here, these Gentile rulers are constantly called dragon in the Bible. They are the big, nasty serpent coming out, causing God's people trouble. Ezekiel 29:3, I am against thee, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lies in the midst of the rivers. Jeremiah 51:34, Nebuchadnezzar, talking about Nebuchadnezzar here. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, hath devoured me, hath crushed me, hath made me an empty vessel, he has swallowed me up like a dragon. Here you have the dragon that is in the sea. This ruler, this Gentile ruler in the sea part is the Gentiles. The whole back half, the 60s, you get a lot of the sea references, and it's very clear that it's talking about the Gentiles. So you have, in that day, when you have this transition from Judaism to Christianity, and that defense city being destroyed so that the new spiritual city could take its place, you also have this Gentile ruler that is in this oppressive form as Pharaoh, as Nebuchadnezzar, is also going to be punished. It's another character during the events, during the time period when this transition is going on in this first century. So you have the Jews, you have the Christians, and then you have the Gentiles, and specifically the persecuting Gentile ruler here. All right? And where else do you find big dragon? Obviously, Revelation, right? Revelation 12. I'm going to skip several slides and seeing how much time we have. I think we're going to have time because there's only 13 verses in this chapter, I think. Yeah. I'm going to come back to this and do this all at once instead of dividing Isaiah up because there's a bunch of slides here. All right. So when the transition is going on, when he's punishing the ones that break the everlasting covenant, this vineyard is going to be singing and rejoicing. And what is the vineyard? This God's faithful, the whole house of Israel. They are going to be the ones that would turn to him, the ones that would convert, would be taken care of. They would be happy. They would be joyful. He's going to destroy the ones that would not turn to him. But some are going to be latching on to the robes of Christ and saying, hey, give us your name. Give us that Christian name. Isaiah 4:1. I'll review, right? We've already done all of this. Get down to verse 7. We're halfway done with the chapter in like the first 2 minutes of class here. I think we're going to have time for Revelation 12. Isaiah 27:7, Christ would smite the smiters. He would slay the slayers, the tormentors, the persecutors would become persecuted. He's going to flip it back. They're going to get what they deserve. And before we go to the next slide, the next verse, I wanted to remind you of a very basic lesson. Did we not just hear this Sunday? This past Sunday or the Sunday before?
Sunday before.
Sunday before? The fruits of the Spirit? Right?
Right.
That was the sermon out of the pulpit. This is not hard stuff to understand. Just keep it in mind when you're reading about these trees producing fruit. And some things that you probably get by now, but before you may or may not have, but now you're going to see them, and you'll be like, okay, I know what that means now. I know what that means. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Not apples, oranges, figs. It's not literal. It's not literal. It's spiritual. And that's what this vineyard of these trees is going to be producing, because the vineyard is the whole house of Israel. The New Jerusalem in the first century and on would be producing their fruit. This kind of fruit, not literal fruit. Okay? He shall call them that come of Jacob, talking about the remnant here. They're going to take root, Israel. And this font, this blue font means the church, the Christian age church here. They're going to blossom. They're going to bud. They're going to fill the face of the world with the fruits of the Spirit. This is Christianity. This is the church. This is the General Assembly and Church of the Firstborn. It is the whole house of Israel. Well, in the way the prophets talk about it is, it just keeps staying the house of Israel. It just goes through a name change there in the first century. It's still the house of Israel. But we don't call it that anymore. We call it Christian, or we call it the Church of Christ. We don't call it New Jerusalem. It's a biblical term. I guess you could put that on your building. The bride, that's a biblical term. You could do that. And when you start looking at these vineyards, some of those parables, you're well aware of the parables there. That's some of the first things you learn as a Christian. They're going to have all the thorns, all of the false teachings, all of the briars and thistles, and the being sown on the wrong type of ground, and all of this, and all these things to make you fall away from being a good vineyard that would produce good fruit. That would prevent you from being a Christian. So, and we touched this last week. Carol asked a question, and we touched it last week. I kind of gave away this slide last week, but I'll go ahead and go over it again today. Is this fruitful vineyard that would be producing these fruits of the Spirit is in contrast to that old Jewish kingdom that was not producing fruit. That fig tree that was not producing fruit. And what happened to that fig tree? It got burned up, right? It was like burned up, and then after that he points up to the mountain, the Temple Mount, and he's like, and like this fig tree that's not producing any fruit, I'm casting down Judaism. I'm casting it down. They didn't produce fruit. I'm done with them. So when you look at Psalm 1, right at the beginning, it's talking about the faithful that delight in the Lord will be like the tree planted by the rivers of water, which we've already gone over. Y'all know that's Christ. Not literal. Not literal. That bringeth forth his fruit. Not literal. It's talking about the Christians that are being fed the Word of God, that are being fed the New Testament gospel. That's what it's talking about there. It's the contrast. And where do you see that? You see the exact same thing at the very end of Paul's vision. 22, 1 through 5 is the end of the vision. Verse 6 on is just the conclusion of the warning. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. That's the Gospels. That is Christ himself. I am the water of life. You drink of me, you're never going to thirst again, in this spiritual sense. Woman at the well was like, what? What are you talking about? In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, there was the tree of life, this vineyard, the Christian church, which bear its fruits. It's the same thing here. It's going to always be yielding these fruits, because it's not literal, so your Christian is going to be constantly doing it. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of nations. Here you get this Gentile reference brought in again. And there shall be no more curse. No more Old Testament kingdom that was going to get cursed. That's going bye-bye. We're transitioning from Judaism to Christianity here. That's what this is. That's what this whole section is. But the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. This is the end of that vision. Carol asked last week, does at any point does it switch over to it being about heaven? This is the very end. There's no more verses after this. You get into the, hey, I'm coming soon, I'm coming soon. I had a conversation today with ChatGPT. It was fun. I was getting specific on the Revelation 12 stuff, the 7 heads, the 10 horns, the 7 crowns, getting some data off of that. And at the end, he goes, It goes, would you like the futurist comparison to this? And I kind of was like, no, that's a dumb comparison because of how many references there are to this events were about to happen. The time was at hand, these events were happening soon. And it wrote back and goes, exactly. That's what I wanted you to say. I was like, that was kind of funny. I'm about to convert ChatGPT, I think.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then you just keep going on, the same concept. And this is a good one. By this, therefore, shall the iniquity of Jacob be purged. The sins of the Jews. Not all man for all time, all mankind for all time. It's not what it's talking about. This is specifically talking about the ones that break the everlasting covenant. The ones in their defenced city. The kingdom that was not producing fruit. They're going to be purged. And when this happens, he that maketh all the stones of the altar as chalk stones that are beaten asunder. He's going to take that altar, that Jewish altar, and he's going to destroy it. Daniel 9:26, the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. When he maketh the stones of the altar as chalk stones, they're going to be beaten up. There shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. It's the destruction of the temple in 70 AD by the Roman army. That's what this verse is talking about. That's when this transition is being completed. This is the end of your 40-year wilderness wandering here. The gospel is starting to spread. He's given the people the chance to repent, the Jews the chance to repent and convert over to Christianity, and now it's time. It's time to finish it. It's time to beat the altar into chalk stone, to take one stone, not let it be upon another. They're going to destroy the city and the sanctuary, the defense city, Jerusalem. This is all talking about the same thing. It's the entire Bible. It's all the same topic. This sins of Jacob should really help you know that this is not talking about an end of time thing. That it is focused on just the Jews there. Verse 10, yet the defenced city, Jerusalem, shall be desolate. The whole time we've been talking about Jerusalem. Chapter 1, verse 7. What does that say? Your country is desolate. Talking about the Jews. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, your strangers, devoured in your presence, and it is desolate. It is overthrown by strangers. The defense city would be desolate. The whole book is what? Concerning who? Judah and Jerusalem. This is the defense city. This is the defense city of the ones that break the everlasting covenant. They're the ones who were guilty of the blood of the saints and the prophets. Matthew chapter 23. We've read this so many times, but I want to read it again. And say, if we had, talking about the Jewish leaders here, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. We wouldn't do that. No way. Wherefore ye be witness unto yourself. This is Christ talking here. You are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, you Jewish leaders. How can you escape the damnation of hell? Not getting into that word now today. Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them ye shall scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city. He's talking to the Jews here, the Jewish leaders. That upon you it is now time. It is now time that the sins of Jacob be purged. Upon this generation there in the first century. Upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth. Israel. From the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily, I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. The people who he was talking to right then. Their generation would be destroyed. Their defense city would be desolated. That happens in 70 AD. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if there was any question on who he was talking to, there shouldn't be. Thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how oft would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathered her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. It's got this contrast. The house that doesn't, the whole house of Jacob that is bad is getting destroyed. The part of it that is repenting, turning to God, grabbing onto the coattails, all of this stuff, the faithful part of it is turning into this vineyard that would be fruitful. And consume the branches thereof. We left off with.
Dumb question. 20 through 37 Matthew, I know this is not Matthew class, but 20 through 37 is talking about stoning them which are sent unto thee. Is that a reference to Stephen, possibly?
I'm pretty sure. I think that after Christ leaves, there's a whole lot of persecution going on. Stephen
Being one of them.
one of the most well-documented ones, right?
Right, because there's probably other things that were not recorded that took place that we just don't know
Right.
about.
Right.
Okay, that makes
I
sense.
kind of think that's exactly what I was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. And consume the branches thereof. This one's got a couple of very interesting parts here that y'all are all going to be like, oh yeah, I know that. I know that. And consume the branches thereof. Getting back to this cedars of Lebanon type thing here. When the boughs thereof are withered, they shall be broken off. They're going to be set on fire. Because you Jews, you house of Jacob, you are a nation with no understanding. They're told that at their beginning, when Moses is warning them of their ultimate end. He says, you are people that does not have any understanding in you. Isaiah is saying the same thing. Isaiah, Moses, John, they're just, Christ is in there as well. They're all just feeding off of each other. And then, look at Romans 11. We've gone to this before. You should have heard this sermon before, because it's great talking about the Gentiles being added into the church. It's a pretty easy Sunday morning sermon. But you're going to see it a couple of different ways now that we've gone through all the different trees and stuff. So he's talking, remember, Paul is talking to the Gentiles. Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles. He's saying, hey, be careful. If we broke off the original trees and grafted branches, the original Jewish ones, and we grafted you in, if you're not producing fruit, we can ungraft you. We can break you off as well. So be good. But look at what it says here. First of all, he's just directly quoting this. And you know this is a first century event. This happened in the first century. You know that the Gentiles were grafted in there in the first century. Prophesied, fulfilled. This is the New Testament fulfillment of Isaiah 27, 10 and 11. Romans 17. And if some of the branches be broken off, those old Jewish branches be broken off, thou, being a wild olive tree, you Gentiles, not a cedar of Lebanon, not indigenous to the Levant, you're a wild olive tree. You're like over here. Maybe Italy. Italy's got olive trees, I'm pretty sure. Do you see that? These Jewish branches were being broken off of this tree of life, this vineyard, the whole house of Israel. They were unfaithful, so they are broken off. They are removed. The kingdom is given to the olive tree. The olive tree is being grafted in now. The Gentiles are the olive tree. Paul is easy to understand. That's what's happening here with these tree metaphors. The firs and cedars of Lebanon, those are the Jews. Those are indigenous, they're the people that belong there in Jerusalem. They were not the stranger trees from afar that represented the Gentiles. Isaiah is saying the Jewish branches are going to be broken off. Paul is saying, hey, when the Jewish branches were broken off, the Gentile branches were grafted in. Just a different way of saying the woman lost her heirs and the Gentiles were adopted. This is saying all the same thing, just illustrating it a bunch of different ways. So it's another when. When is this section? When is this in that day? we've probably had 20 examples in these 4 chapters, but here's another very strong one where there is literally a first century verse, New Testament verse, that is saying that is fulfilled. And it will come to pass in that day that the Lord, and you should be thinking Isaiah 19 here. Okay, you should be thinking the metaphors of Isaiah 19. Egypt, Assyria, all of that. I'll get back to it, or I'll explain it once I finish reading it here. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt. It shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel, O ye faithful. It shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the Gentile realm, and the outcast in the land of Egypt, that now persecuting Jerusalem. And you shall worship the Lord. So Jews, Gentiles, you're all going to come together and you're going to worship the Lord. That's what he's saying here. He's drawing back on what he's covered in Isaiah 19, just a few chapters earlier. It's talking about the church. They're all the world is going to be able to come together. It's a first century event. All right, the dragon that is in the sea, and I hope you see where these leaders are being called these dragons. That's pretty clear to me. And the sea, I think we've established as the Gentile. I'm going to go through what I think Revelation 12 is about. Okay, this is not uniform. There will be people out in the world that agree with me. There will be people that do not agree with me. There will be people that agree with most of what I say in here, but they won't agree with my overall theory on what everything represents. When you start talking about these different theories of what Revelation is about, the big debate is who is the harlot. That's what we've been discussing in here. And if y'all remember class 3, we went over the harlot. Okay, I think it's Jerusalem. Some people think it is Rome. All right? And when you start seeing some of the stuff in here, Rome to me is definitely present in this chapter. And people that buy into that Rome theory, one of the various versions of the Rome theories, I'm not sure how many there are, they will define some of the same stuff that I will. It's just when we get to the woman, I think I've shown in here that is God's people. And they eventually play the harlot worse than the tribes of the north, right? And they're eventually going to get their punishment. So that harlot, that woman, is God's people. So keep that in mind as we're going through here. And I think you're going to start seeing, as we go through Revelation chapter 12, you're going to start seeing all of these symbols that we've already been seeing in here. Okay? This is kind of bonus material because we've got enough time. There appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, the great red dragon. I associate red with the Roman Empire. Right? It's a pretty common thing. They have that crimson, whatever, all over their stuff. There are other theories out there. We have been studying this other theory where red represents the Herods instead. But that's not a sea beast, and to me this thing has the markings of Rome. But we're still looking at it because that still would be technically a Gentile ruler. Not to confuse things, okay? There appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having the 7 heads, the 10 horns, and the 7 crowns. And you get to another chapter and it kind of explains what those are. The 7 heads, the 7 hills, very famous for Rome. However, there are a few different cities that had 7 hills, but I think Rome is the most famous one there. The 10 horns, your 10 tributary kingdoms. Isaac Newton has a great write-up on what the 10 tributary kingdoms of Rome were. The 7 crowns being these Caesars that are coming in and causing these problems to the Jews. So I think when you see this 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns, That's just saying this thing is Roman. That's the way that I look at it. So look at, and you can go verse by verse. I'm not going to read it for time's sake, but in verse 1 of Revelation 12, you've got this woman, these faithful Jews that are undergoing, these faithful Jews that are switching to Christianity, because this is after Christ has gone, and now it's Christianity. But again, don't be so hard line on Jews, bam, cross, Christians. It's God's faithful, all right? And the whole 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, those are all the faithful Jews that are they're continuing this kingdom. They're just getting a new name. They're getting that Christian name. This woman is going through the labor pains. We've discussed the labor pains in here 4 or 5 times already throughout the various different books we had. So it's going through that turbulence, that the worst days ever during this transition. Then you have this Gentile Roman ruler, I'm going to say Nero. He's going to appear on the scene. This dragon, I think this is the willful king of Daniel 11, verse 36. For those of you that were in my Daniel 11 class, I think you will find these 2 little sections line up fantastically. He's going to be warring against and casting down these Jewish rulers. The Roman leadership comes in. That starts with Pompey in 70 BC, something like that. And they're having this fight. The Jews are having this fight over who gets to be high priest. And they're like, hey, let's ask a third party. Rome, can you come help us? Rome's like, yes, I will. Thank you very much. They open the door to Rome, and then they're coming in, and the Caesars come in. They start having this worship. They start having this sacrifice, and these Jewish leaders are getting put on the back burner. They're falling out of power. The Herods, it's not so much a Herod is the king of all the Jews. That's kind of isn't how it worked. They had different regions, and the different Herods had different levels of their kingship or whatever. But they are throwing the stars down. These leadership of the Jews is losing their place of position. And God said he was going to do that the whole time. He just uses these strangers from afar to accomplish that mission, right? He's told us that over and over in the Old Testament. I'm going to bring the strangers from afar to bring you down, ye heavens. You're going to be brought down to the earth. You're going to lose your power. Your scepter will be broken. This dragon comes in. He's bringing down these Jewish rulers. He's trying to kill Christ and their cause. Nero is a very bad dude. In verse 5, this is a direct quote from Psalm 2:9, talking about Christ here. This man-child that will rule with the iron rod. So you know that that's who it is. However, it's not just Christ that's going to be ruling with the iron rod. Somebody read Revelation 2, verse 26 and 27 for me. Because they're also, these are the Christians, the faithful, they're also ruling with Christ. We're going to reign with Christ. We are a kingdom of priests. You have that, Mike? 26 and 27.
Okay. It says, the one who conquers and who keeps my works until the end, to him I will give authority over all the nations. And he will rule them with a rod of iron, as when earthen pots are broken into pieces, even as I myself have received authority from my Father.
We're going to be reigning with Christ. Okay, those there that were going through this transition, they were going to be also the part. So this dragon is coming after Christianity. That's what he's coming after here. And I liken it a lot to Ezekiel 37. I think we get into that in a slide here or two, but He's coming after the hope or cause of Christ. Not so much, yeah, he's trying to kill individuals, but I don't think that's what it's referencing here. I think he's talking about the whole house of Israel, the whole church, or the cause of Christ, or the hope of Christ. I think that's the way you need to think on this section. I think we have plenty of evidence of it. In verse 6, you have the Christians fleeing from Jerusalem, as they're instructed in Matthew 24, and you get these 1260 days, the 3.5 years, the 42 months, the times time and half a time. Verse 7, Christ would defeat the cause of this Gentile ruler. This Nero was not going to be successful. He was not going to win. He was not going to be able to destroy the bride of Christ. Christ is going to win. Nero, who had accused the Christians of burning Rome, he's going to lose the war against them, against Christ. He's going to lose his rule, and he's going to lose his life. Verse 13. And this is not sequential. I'm going to show that in a second. This is not an order of events here, because you're going to have the woman fleeing into the wilderness for 42 months 3 different times. It's a topical ordering, not a chronological ordering here. And when the dragon saw that he had cast, when this Gentile ruler, when Nero saw that he was cast into the earth, he's losing his power. Daniel 11:44, 45. And he saw tidings out of the east and out of the north, and he got real angry and went out and killed a bunch of people. That's what those verses say. I think that's what's happening here. It's making him real mad. He's losing his mind, actually. And that starts, historians, when does that start? 64? Kills his wife or his mom or something like that, and then loses it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he's starting to lose his grip on everything. And when these revolts start happening, Judea first, late 66 AD, Gaul a year later, with Vindex and Galba comes in to crush it, and then Galba takes over, and all of this stuff. That is, Nero is super angry, and he wants everybody killed. He wants all of his political opponents killed. He wants all the Jews killed. He wants whoever's revolting in the north killed. When the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. This faithful Judaism, which is bringing forth Christianity, is what's happening here. It's not chronological. In Revelation 12, verse 4, the dragon is after the woman. And then in verse 6, she flees into the wilderness for 3.5 years. And then again in 13, the dragon is after the woman, and she flees into the wilderness for 3.5 years. And then it happens again in chapter 13. It's not a sequential thing. It's just a topical, trying to illustrate the big event here. This is the big event. Verse 14. And the woman was going to fly into the wilderness. This is that dispersion from Judea. This is the Matthew 24, when ye faithful, when you see therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. When you see the abomination of desolation, Luke's account, parallel account, Luke doesn't say the abomination of desolation. He says, when you see Jerusalem encompassed with armies, he's more direct. He's ambiguous, cryptic, whatever. He's not. He's very direct. Hey, you see the big Roman army around Jerusalem? Leave, fast. Get out. Don't go back into the city, get your stuff. Get out of there. It's happening. Flee into the wilderness, into the mountains. Get out of Jerusalem. Because what is Daniel saying? Because they're saying when you see that spoken of by Daniel, what did Daniel say? And the prince that shall come, Nero, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And it might be Titus, actually. Okay, I'm not going to get into that right now. Either one work. The prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end of it shall be with the flood. And we know the flood, the Assyrian army was sending their flood over its banks to go destroy Israel, the northern tribes. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. In the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. This is talking about the destruction of the temple. Matthew chapter 24, verse 2, verse 3. Hey, Christ, you see those stones there? You see that temple? When is that going to be torn down? When is the end of the Jewish age? He says, well, let me tell you, when you see that which is spoken of by Daniel the prophet, when you see Jerusalem encompassed with armies, that's when it's happening.
That's also seems to go back to the turning of the stones into chalk.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, here's my fantastic slide. This is that slide last week where I said I just threw paint on the wall, and y'all have got to figure it out. Take a picture of it. I'm not going to explain it, but this is all the times where you have the 1260, the 42, the 3.5, the half of the 7 in the midst of the 7th week, the times time and half a time. These are all the places, and all of these things are all talking about the same thing to me: the destruction of Jerusalem. Take a picture. Not going to go over it. Okay, you got a picture, or just they're going to send it out to you. Candace sends it out, but you can also do word searches. But this is probably easier. It's all compiled in a very, very nicely formatted slide. If anybody wants to take the initiative and do this much nicer for me, I would gladly welcome it.
That's great. Like this.
I think so. Okay, everybody got the picture that wants it? And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood. Here comes your Gentile leader casting out his army, just like the Assyrian Sennacherib's overflowing his banks with his army to come destroy the northern 10 tribes. I think that's, it's here. I put it up here. 8:7, right? And Daniel 9:26 is pretty direct with it as well. He says, and the people of the prince, there's your serpent, your dragon here, that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood. The wars of desolation. This Gentile army is going to come in and destroy the city and the sanctuary. And it's going to be like a flood. Revelation 12, you've got this Gentile army, this Gentile leader sending his forces so that he could flood her out. However, verse 16, he's unsuccessful. Because why? Because the earth, Judaism, swallows up the flood. They take the blow, and the woman escapes. The Jews are destroyed. They don't want to help, but they did. The Jews took that flood. The Roman army encompasses Jerusalem and then smashes it. Hulk smash. The remnant of her seed. We've covered this so many times. This woman now has these heirs. The remnant of her seed here. This concept you should get. The remnant of her seed. They're going to be faithful. They are going to be adopting in now these Gentiles. They're still going after them. This might be part of it here, what I was talking about. And it's going to be off and on for another couple generations after that, actually. I think your last persecuting Caesar is Diocletian. And then right after Diocletian is Constantine, and he's early 4th century. But it's not near as focused as Nero, and it's not near as dangerous as Nero, because the church is at its infancy and geographically heavily concentrated there in Jerusalem in the 30s, 40s, 50s, early 60s, and then it starts spreading out into Gentile with all of Paul's works. 13, continuation of it. Again, I don't think it's ordered chronologically. I think it's ordered conceptually. You've got this Roman army, this sea beast, this beast arising out of the sea that this dragon controls. And again, Rome people will agree with me on this stuff. We just don't agree on who the harlot is. So they'll almost lockstep with me, agree with me on this part. Verse 11, the earth beast is persecuting the idolatrous. The earth beast is the persecuting idolatrous Jews and their leaders. They were really just puppets of the Caesars. They spake like the dragon. They got their power from the dragon. They couldn't do anything on their own. They didn't have that authority. You've got 3.5 years again there. And kind of at the, talking about fleeing from it, escaping it, surviving it. And then if you go back, if you want, some of you were not here for that, class 8, you get down all the way to the end of chapter 13 and you get the mark of the beast, which is the mark of a man. When you use that gematria to number the letters, put numerical values on the letter, 666, when you spell out Neron Caesar, it comes out to 666. And I've never seen another example of what that might come out to. It would make sense to them. Back then, it's applicable, it fits in the context. I think that this dragon that controls Rome, that has his mark all over it, everything, that is the earth beast gets its power from it, is a puppet of this great dragon. I think this is talking about Nero. I think that's what this, I think just like Nebuchadnezzar, just like Pharaoh, I think that's what this dragon is. It's this Gentile leader that is going after God's faithful, but instead of succeeding, he ends up flooding the earth instead, metaphorically sending his armies to destroy Jerusalem instead, and the woman escapes. So he's a bad guy who destroys another bad guy. Christianity comes out of the ashes and it just takes off. That's what I think Revelation chapter 12 is about. That's what I think your great red dragon is.